All right, I've been wanting to make this video for a little bit now, and I just got done watching the AWC, which is the Arena World Championship, and there are some clear issues with World of Warcraft's class balance that I know a lot of players have been experiencing, and I've made several videos regarding class balance, and I know some of those videos can get misconstrued or misunderstood, or maybe I could do a better job portraying my ideas in that video or those videos as well. I'm a fan of small, frequent tuning for many reasons, and you're seeing that now in the AWC. There's clearly some things in the game that are problematic. There is certain class legendaries, Triune Ward is an example, just an example, not targeting mages specifically. There's certain conduits, certain soulbinds. You're seeing that with the pod tender, where games are being won because of pod tender. Pod tender brings you back to life if it's healed to full, and players are using off heals on the pod tender, which is no different than some of the res trinkets that we tried to remove in the beta. I'm not sure why it's acceptable in a soulbind tree, if I'm being honest. We didn't want the trinkets to be available because they were essentially universal amongst all classes, and so is that soulbind tree for anyone that plays Night Fae. No one wanted that, and games are being won like that in a competitive setting. And it's also not fun to play against when players are able to heal this thing back to life. So those are some of the examples. There's other examples as well, as ret off healing, wog healing. There's Twitter posts online of, Retribution Paladins doing top damage and doing nearly as much healing as other healing classes, Holy Paladins, for example. And the chat in particular, I think, is a little unfair. I think the reaction from the community in the chat is always almost the same, and I do think it's a little unfair because they're just saying nerf rets, nerf warriors, nerf DKs, nerf anything that wins. But there's some justification there as well. There's some frustration there as well, because it feels as if, once again, the community is not being heard on their complaints about certain classes. And this is why you want to do small, frequent tuning in a game like World of Warcraft. This isn't League of Legends. This isn't Overwatch, where you can just easily, if you nerf something, somebody can easily switch to a new champion. Even though they may like that champion, they could still just pick anyone at their disposal because they're all available, and the only barrier to entry is just learning that specific champion. Whereas in World of Warcraft, not only do you have to learn something new, but you have to go through the entire farm of farming all of the, all of the legendaries, the conduits, unlocking your soulbinds, progressing through the campaign, Torghast with the legendaries, farming the honor gear. I may have repeated something there because there's so much to keep track of. And although it's a lot better than some of the previous expansions, or at least I should say BFA, it's still a lot of work. So you have to be delicate with the balancing, right? It's not going to feel good when they end up nerfing Rets or Fire Mages or Windwalker if that's your main. What if that's been your main for a really long time, right? It's not going to feel good when you log in the game and you see that Blizzard hasn't said anything in 2 to 3 months, and they come and drop the nerf hammer. Now, I know that they were, gone for the holidays. I'm not naive to that. I know that the tournament's coming up. Maybe they're waiting for balancing in regards to that. But why isn't that clarified? There's no reason that you can't communicate with the community saying, hey, we're gone for the holidays. We're looking at these classes. We know that these specific things may be problematic. We're looking to adjust these, keeping people in the loop, not leaving it to the player base. Like, for example, this is just, I can speak for myself. I have to constantly let players know that, hey, it's probably the holidays, or maybe they're away waiting for their arena tournament. That shouldn't be on the player base. That should be on whoever is in charge of that. If there is nobody in charge of that, then that would be a position that I think would have of great benefit, so that the narrative isn't that Blizzard's out of touch. I know a lot of people online are talking about the fact that, well, this is so much better than BFA. And honestly, my first reaction to that is, if I'm being honest, like, kind of shame on you, because although it's better than BFA, of course, but what is that? What in comparison to what? The approach, it's not about the gameplay or the pacing being better. It's the approach to balancing. Because everyone knows that plays this game like me, all of those players that are saying that, how long it takes to get change in this game. You know that this is the norm, where we don't hear anything for 3 months, and then the nerf hammer happens, the nerf bat happens, and then it might go too far, and then those classes are rendered useless and they're just bad in the meta. So that's my reaction to it. Kind of shame on you for, you know, although I am happy, I like the current product. It's good, but it doesn't mean there's some things that are still wrong. It doesn't mean that there's things that, in my opinion, are unacceptable. I don't think the pod tender should have made it into the AWC. Everyone was saying that this shouldn't be in the game. On Twitter, on any official form of feedback, I'm sure it's on the forums as well. You know, there's things that shouldn't be making it into competitive gameplay, especially when money's on the line and stuff like that was frustrating. Now, the problem is Blizzard has put themselves in a position where, you know, they have a lot to, it's a difficult job. They have so many things to balance following this. And what are you going to target, right? Like, that's what I hear. I go to a lot of streams. I'll go into a Fire Mage stream, for example, and they'll say, well, it's weird if you nerf Fire Mage because what about Ellie or Balance or all of these other classes, right? There's so many things that require tuning where you needed to do small, frequent tuning along the way to iron things out, to not let it get to this point. There should be somebody in charge of balancing. If there's not somebody there, because I know it takes up a lot of time, it's a full-time job. The money is well worth it. The investment in that person is well worth it because you'll retain so many subscribers. In a lot of other games, it's fun because they consistently update the game. They're constantly refreshing the meta. It doesn't stay stale. And when it does stay stale, I usually drop off of those games. I lose interest. When it comes to World of Warcraft, you get these big content patch cycles and people kind of resubscribe for the new content cycle. Oh, there's a new raid or there's a new arena meta, but it doesn't have to be that way. The game can be refreshing with the current content you have for both PvP and PvE. If Unholy DK is the best in the current raid tier always, why not spice that up a bit? Why not change that up? Oh, these classes aren't doing that well. Let's buff them up. Let's let people try raiding on new classes. Let's let people try doing Mythic Plus on new healers. If Mistweaver's not doing good, that should get, what are we waiting for? It's very clear if you look at any of the analytics that are public that Mistweaver's not doing well. Why doesn't that get any changes? Why is it taking so long for that to have happen? The meta doesn't need to develop to see that some healer's not even being played. And if you do buff it and it ends up being good or it's too strong, if you're doing frequent changes, you can tune it back down again. It keeps the game alive in the current tier. And it also makes it so that nerfs don't go too far. And more importantly, it keeps the developers in communication with the player base. We know what they're considering. We know what they're thinking. They're trying to create the meta themselves, not letting things just go on for so long, right? I think that is the frustration of the community. An example would be the Mindcontrol Bug. And I know that recently D-Machine came out. And I would like to say as well, you know, that guy's got a super hard job. And I know getting feedback publicly isn't the easiest thing. I know how much that dude cares about what he does. I know when I get feedback, it sucks. You know, it just doesn't feel good. And I know he's not responsible for a lot of those things. So it really sucks. He came out publicly and said something about the mind control bug. And if you don't know about the mind control bug, it's been in the game for quite some time, since the beta players have been reporting it. And if you mind control somebody, you and that player see no difference in the game. But everyone around you, so your teammates and their teammates, see them teleporting like some Dragon Ball Z character. It's so frustrating. There's other bugs where your teammates don't even leave the starting room. Like they're stuck there, but then they actually are in the game, but you can't see them. Right? And it was happening in the tournament, and the chat blew up with it because they knew it existed, and Blizzard hasn't said anything about it despite all the public tweets and on the forums as well. And he came out and said that we know about it and that the assumption should be from the players, something like this. I don't want to misquote. Maybe I'll show it on screen. The assumption should be from players that Blizzard knows about it. Well, it's not clear that you know about it if you don't say anything. And I think it's not to him in general. The policy is saying nothing is not better than saying something anymore. You don't get that experience in a lot of other games. You just don't. Some companies do, but doesn't make it all right. If something exists, be transparent about it. Hey, we know this exists. We're trying our best to fix it. Why is that too difficult to do? Why? In my opinion, that's my meaning of unacceptable. It's just not. to assume that players should know that the developers are aware of bugs. What about the pyroclasm bug where mages are one-shotting people in arena right now? Are we supposed to assume that the developers know about that if they're not going to say anything? It's frustrating. As a player of this game, it could be so much better if the approach to certain things in the game changed. The approach to balancing changed. It would be so much more refreshing. We wouldn't be worried about these over nerfs. There wouldn't be this fear of your class getting crushed on Tuesday, because we know that balancing is a regular thing in the game and it's not something that's sporadic over 3 months, or you don't see it very often. That position, whoever can be in charge of that, should be something that's a priority. It would allow people to pick whatever they want comfortably. I don't want to make tier lists letting people know that that class is probably going to stay bad for the rest of the expansion and that class is likely to get nerfed. That's why people look at tier lists in this game. That's why they're so popular in a lot of games, but specifically World of Warcraft. You don't want to pick the wrong thing. There's this huge fear of picking the wrong thing. I know that there's going to be some big changes, and it's unfortunate to see because I don't know when we're going to see changes again. You're going to miss something. There's going to be something that you're going to miss. Maybe you don't nerf Triune Ward, or maybe you don't nerf Infernal Cascade, or maybe you don't nerf enhancement shaman healing. Although it's ret right now, it may be enhanced after this because of how much healing they do. No one's talking about it yet, but there are other examples. But if it was regular, no one would have this fear. If we speak about a mind control bug, which by the way isn't something that's game abusing, if we speak about this, just say, hey, we heard your feedback. There's someone in charge of that. That 50K salary, 60K salary, maybe it's more. I really do believe that would be worth the investment. Ultimately, you know, I'm happy with the current game, but it doesn't mean it can't be better. It doesn't mean I'm satisfied or ungrateful coming from BFA, because that was also, as a longtime player, that experience in Battle for Azeroth to me was also unacceptable. I don't think that was something that was fair after all the feedback about specific classes like Destruction Warlocks and certain corruptions and all of those things, with the limited amount of testing behind them as well. There was no testing behind corruption. It just came, you don't nerf things by 70% the first day they come out if there's legitimate testing behind it. You just don't. So anyway, just my thoughts about everything. I really do hope that the community can come together on this and start advocating for small, frequent changes and how it can change everything. The AWC as well. You're investing all this money in it. You want it to do well. You want to get more sponsors on it. Maintain it. It's fun to watch, but there's certain things that shouldn't be in there, and they've been reported. So it's, I guess, as a player, it's frustrating. So anyway, just my thoughts. See you all in the next one.